Who's ready for another awesome painting video? Yes, we're going to be using Winsor & Newton acrylics to create this awesome kind of kibbles and bits and milk bone topper. Now this is a Sculpey original clay topper that I sculpted for an amazing customer. Now this is kind of like a full-length highlight clip from the overall full-length content, which included both the sculpt and the painting as well as the epoxying of this overall item. Again, we use Sculpey Original for this project. Now, at the end of this little highlight, I will link the full-length content, so if you'd like to see the entire project beginning to end, you can also view that as well. Now, like most of my projects, I do begin by base coating this in a beautiful Mars Black base coat, and we'll start to build up our colors from there. Now, for this project, we're going to use very basic colors overall. Again, we're going to be kind of painting a kibbles and bits base, and then we have two milk bones. We're going to paint those milk bones, so one looks like a little bit of a red tinged kind of burgundy, and the other one is going to be your stereotypical like kind of tanned out brown bone. We're going to begin by this process by kind of building up a little bit of raw umber here, and this is specifically so I can kind of get just a brown color in between all of these little kibbles and bits that we had sculpted. Once I get done with the overall base coat of the Mars Black and this raw umber, then I'll start to work in some titanium white into this mixture. And you'll see what I'll do is I'll do a dry brushing over the entire project just to kind of bring up the overall highlights of it into a lighter color. And this is also going to build up a little paint on those high raised edges of the sculpted texture. So a lot of that sculpted texture will kind of bring forward, and we'll be able to see all of those details as we apply more layers of this paint here. This is really also going to kind of give me an idea of how the clay is going to take the paint and how we're going to apply those colors moving forward. As far as the kibbles and bits, we're going to be making a kind of a dark yellow, as well as a burgundy, and then a hooker green. And I say hooker green because I'm thinking more of like a forest green kind of color. And I want those to be very dinged out so that they don't draw the eye too much. The real staple of this project here is going to be these milk bones, as well as a little dog tag that I had also sculpted. We actually made a silicone mold for that, and then I hand sculpted those details. And we're going to have the customer's dog training business logo on that. Or at least their like initials for the business. So as we build up these colors here, we'll start to pull out some other colors. So as far as the color combinations for the kibbles and bits, so what we have here is I'm going to be using a lot of yellow ochre throughout this process. So I'll begin by using a yellow ochre, raw umber, burnt umber, a lot of raw sienna, as well as some crimson for some of those burgundies, kind of bring up those red hues, as well as some hooker green. Hooker green is the only green that we introduce into this project, as well as the only red that we use is crimson. Everything else from there forward is just going to be a burnt umber mixture with a raw sienna and a little bit of titanium white, just to kind of bring up the opaqueness of some of these colors and also kind of brighten them up a little bit. So we're just going to go around the overall item here, and we're going to go ahead and just paint each kibbles and bits as we go around. If I get a little bit of over painting onto the background between each individual kibbles and bits that we had sculpted, then that's completely fine, and it's just part of the process. So sit back and enjoy as we just casually have fun painting these kibbles and bits, and then we'll get to the bones here in a few minutes. with the kibble bit and bits kind of like pretty much kind of painted in the way I want to. I will come back later on maybe after it darkens out and dries up, and I may apply just a little bit more highlights of that yellow ochre, pure yellow ochre, just to kind of bring up those really golden tones on those pieces. I feel like the yellow ochre really does make those kibbles and bits pop, opposed to the red burgundy and the hooker green that we applied. But you need all the colors together to make it really look like that kibbles and bits mixture that we're aiming for. As far as the milk bones itself, we're using a lot of raw sienna here. So as we introduce more raw sienna, a little bit of titanium white, we're going to bring up those colors. As far as the redder tone of the bone, we're going to be using more raw umber. So just be aware we're going to use a lot of raw umber and a absolute ton of burnt umber, so that we can kind of bring that redder color in from the brown. And the goal here is just to include enough maybe a crimson and burnt umber to kind of make it look like a little bit of a burgundy color without letting it be too overpowering burgundy. If it looks too more burgundy than the kibbles and bits, we've done something wrong. But it does want to be distinguishingly different than the actual brown bone. I want to have a different color, because when you open up a box of milk bones, they have an assorted different types of colors in there. It would definitely be kind of interesting to see how they make some of these kibbles and bits and the milk bones, and how they're just kind of assorted colors inside the same box. You know, are they made in different parts of the factory and then brought into the same box via conveyor belt, or are they baked together and then they're just jumbled together? I wonder how all that's created. It's kind of cool that you open it up and they have a lot of different varieties of bones, or a lot of different varieties of kibbles. Obviously they have to be like mixed and then baked separate, I guess, before they go into the box in a random assortment. So I'm wondering, like, where along the process are they all like mixed together? I guess it has to be after the baking process, and now all of the little textured kibbles and bits, or the milk bones, are like imprinted with their overall milk bone texture or the shape of the kibbles. Kind of interesting. As I'm thinking about this project, I'm thinking about how they would make those in the factory. Definitely interesting. I did use a little bit of a burnt umber kind of acrylic wash there. That's a $1 Rowney ink, and I'll add a lot of water to it. And it's just kind of browning out the little zones and sections between all the sculpted kibbles and bits. And it's just kind of adding a lot of diversity to it, so where the background underneath those kibbles really don't have to have a lot of depth and dimension, because we're just browning those out. It really just brings its detail in itself. We don't have to really work hard to get those details to show through. Again, don't forget, I will come in later and I'll give a little bit more of a highlight over this layer. So this is a really dirty layer here, applying a lot of that wash. Well, once it dries out, I'll apply just a few highlights here and there, just to kind of brighten it up a little bit over some of those raised edges. Overall, I'm really happy with how the paint job turned out on these kibbles and bits and milk bones. And then the overall actual dog tag itself, it was painted separately, so I didn't include that in this video. I just wanted to focus on the actual painting of the milk bones and the kibbles, just because it was such a satisfying process, and I thought it would make a cool video in itself. Again, if you want to see the full-length video, make sure you do so. You can also jump around, because it will have timestamps in that video. Otherwise, guys, I really do hope you enjoyed this nice, simple, but fun painting video. Be sure to like and subscribe, guys. Also, check out my Etsy. You never know when your commission might show up here on my YouTube channel. Later, guys.